Been getting, I won't say that every day I get one or two, but every couple of days at the very least, I get contacted by somebody with a query around the sectional title Ombuds office. Some people are happy to pay the R5 a month, which allows them to have access to an ombud to sort out one or more of the many problems that seem often to attend sectional title ownership. Some are very aggrieved at that R5 that they have to pay, don't believe that that money is going to be well spent and they're going to get any kind of decent service for it. I had one email from somebody who's tried to make contact with the Western Cape regional ombuds person and has had very little success in doing so. And when eventually the regional ombud was contacted, the regional ombud was not particularly helpful or polite. We have approached the Ombuds office, both at national and regional level, and said, please, will you come on and talk about what you do, what you can and can't do, how to approach you, what kinds of disputes you're likely to be able to intervene in, and so on. But for the moment, nothing from either of those two offices. Andre Nortje is an attorney at Skuman Law, and he knows about these things. Andre, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John.
Is this fully established in law, the Ombuds Office for sectional title yet, or is it something which is still sort of in the works?
No, it's fully established. It's been established in October 2016. It is very new, so it's a new process. It's still making its way into the eyes of the public. So although very established officially, it's still very new.
Are most sectional title units deducting the R5? I don't quite know how the payment works and how it gets to the funding mechanism that keeps the office going.
The funding is determined by the body corporate of each community scheme or sectional title body corporate. They do have the community schemes, Ombud services do have a registration process in place where every sectional title can register for that. In terms of deducting the levy, that's as you said, it's a negligible amount. I think it's capped at 40 rand per month.
Okay, so who decides what it is between the R5, which I've been quoted in much of my correspondence, and the 40 rand, which is the legislated maximum? Is it the body corporate that says we're going to deduct X amount?
No, the amount is determined in the regulations or the legislation. It's a certain percentage. I think it's 2% on top of the amount that the monthly levy exceeds 500 rand.
Okay, so there is a formula.
There is a formula where it's worked out. I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but there is a formula that's been implemented by the legislation.
So the office has been established just more than 6 months ago then. Has it got into gear yet? Is it hearing disputes, resolving disputes?
I won't exactly say that it's gotten into gear yet. As I said, it's a very new, in terms of new processes and dispute resolution systems and platforms, 6 months is still very young. I think in the overall, the public perceive ombud services as being a paper tiger, not threatening enough as they think the courts would be. So I think the weaponry is here. The legislation is well drafted. I think, by giving it time and still obtaining the public's confidence in the ombud services, I think, with time, the systems will be smoothened out. The people, involved in the ombud self, the adjudicators, I think there's still lots of training to be needed for the employees, the adjudicators, etc. But I think in terms of the legislation that's well drafted, I think the weapons is there to make it a successful platform for dispute resolution. In terms of being less expensive and more accessible to the public, and maybe less intimidating than going to the court as well.
What kinds of things can it adjudicate, and what kinds of disputes can it not adjudicate?
The types of disputes that it can adjudicate is is a smaller, I want to say smaller disputes, but, if you're going to look at specific law, then naturally,
perhaps helpful if you just say, well, this is the kind of dispute that arises in sectional title complexes, and it can be adjudicated by the Ombud. Give me an example.
The example, damage caused by one unit to a neighboring unit, in terms of water leakage, determining which unit is the responsible person for that damage, or even arrear levies can be adjudicated in terms of this legislation. So there are factual disputes that can be, and I think that's the key, factual disputes rather than disputes based on the law, which need to be taken to the courts, to a judge or magistrate.
So is there a clear dividing line between what can and can't be adjudicated? Give me an example of perhaps of something that, again, occurs in sectional title complexes, which would still have to go through to the courts.
Well, first of all, let's say matters that can be heard by the, Ombuds services are financial issues within the, governance issues with the body corporate, how meetings are held, the processes, the notices in terms of that, management services, any disputes regarding private areas or common areas in sectional titles. So it's a general, amount of issues that can be heard by the Ombuds services, and, making sure that the application complies with the legislation. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, and I've just got a WhatsApp in. A retirement village in Mitchell's Plain charges 23 Rand for the ombudsman's fee. So unfair, as those people already live on the breadline as it is. I got an email yesterday from somebody living in one of the CPOA complexes saying, we're now being told we have to pay this ombuds fee. Is it compulsory for any block which is registered under sectional title law?
As far as I know, yes. I think it is compulsory. And, I understand completely that I think it's, depending on the situation, it might be, 23 Rand extra a month is, it can be more money for some areas as others or some situations. But I think if looking at the overall and the bigger picture, the services are there to resolve disputes at a much cheaper rate than going to the courts, for example. So hopefully by time this process will be smoothened out, and the 23 Rand or 5 Rand extra per month will make it worthwhile.
Yeah, Beverly's in a share block and paying 40 Rand a month, which you said was the capped maximum. Peter in Val de Vie, I'll come to you in a second. I just want to ask one last question from a listener, Andre. Could you approach the Ombudsman about the chairman of a body corporate? This is obviously a very personal situation. The chairman of the body corporate where my listener lives is acting in an all-powerful manner, making self-serving decisions and not being objective at all. Could members in a complex go to the Ombud and say, we don't believe that our body corporate is properly representing the interests of the people who live in the sectional title complex? Definitely.
That's one of the reasons for the community schemes Ombud services is to ensure that the governance, it wants to ensure good governance in a body corporate or sectional title scheme. It wants to ensure impartial and transparent, service for the community schemes or sectional titles. So definitely, if it's a chairman that's, doesn't ensure that there's good governance within that sectional titles, or if that owner or tenant is feeling that it's some unfair management that's taking place, then an application can be made to the Ombuds.
Andre Nordkeer, thank you very much indeed.